wake up and sit down. ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ರು ಮಲಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ. Universities Act are almost actually similar with some changes here and there. So therefore, if you go through the whole of Karnataka State Universities Act, you will be able to get actually kind of a picture of your own act. Not much of a difference, because UGC has released one format which should be followed by all universities while adopting their own actually act. So sometimes there may be some change in the nomenclature of the bodies, but for that, the principal actually responsibilities, functions, and duties remain almost actually the same, including the powers. Anyway, before come to that, my PPT is available now, is visible now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I will try to look into the state of higher education in India. I think this is a very vital information which one should know before actually we look into our own Universities Act. See, the teachers that you work, you should understand your entire employment actually is regulated by this particular act of your university. And this act plays a very important role in regulating your profession. Therefore, you should be knowing the provisions of this particular act, because it covers the entire actually gamut of questions actually of your profession, right? So therefore, here before that, we will try to see how actually higher education system is working in this country. India is the third largest country which has the higher education system in the world, after US and China. They have more number of colleges and more number of universities, certainly not more number of students. In terms of actually financial volume, etc., they are the biggest. As per 2011 census, less than 10% of Indians were graduates. Less than 10%. 2011. We don't have the latest actually census, therefore it is much bigger now. We'll not be able to get actually unless the census data actually is released. I'm sure it is not only just 10%, it has exceeded. Look here, it has expanded at a very fast pace. It has added, I'll tell you, in 10 years, nearly 20,000 colleges. Between 2001 and 2011, 20,000 new colleges were actually established in India. And this ecosystem ranks one of the largest tertiary education systems in the world. The kind of actually system that you see, it is the largest actually tertiary education system in the world. I will not be able to give you the exact actual number of universities because it varies from day to day. The latest information that I could actually lay my hands on is there are 1,338, nearly 1,500 actually universities across the country, both central universities, state universities, private universities, including deemed universities. Like if you break them, you get the following actually numbers. State public universities, there are 488, more than state public universities. Private universities, more than 538, you will be able to get. And institutes of national importance, like, IITs, IIMs, NITs, etc., we have 161, not one or two, huge number. And deemed universities, more than 200 we got, more than 200, it's not just 150. And central universities, like JNU, Delhi University, Banaras University, more than 57. Open universities, 19. These are all conservative estimate. I'll tell you, in reality, much more than that. I will not be able to get the data. Whatever I could get, I will just place it before. There are more than 50,000 colleges in this country, for your kind information. And standalone institutions. Standalone institutions means they are almost like universities actually working as universities. For example, IITs, etc., etc. We have the highest number of affiliated colleges in the world. 49,500 actually institutions which offer various degrees. They are affiliated to certain of the universities. Out of 1,333 universities. Standalone institutions which give diploma level specialized institutions, 12,000 such actually institutions are there. Autonomous colleges, where I come from, perhaps actually second or third autonomous law college in the country I am talking about. We got autonomy in the year 2005. The first law college to get autonomy in the entire country. There are 1,200 autonomous colleges. You know, autonomy is a wonderful concept. Unfortunately, it is not fully being exploited. Either universities do not give the power, or the colleges actually have failed to exercise their autonomy. In my case, I'll tell you, it is a university which always actually hinders any expansion or work actually of the autonomous colleges. If there are any people from any other autonomous colleges, you can certainly share with me your experience as an autonomous college. And coming to the tertiary enrollment actually is 27% only. Means once a student actually, the students who finish actually primary education, secondary education, the college level, only 25% of the people who join school will join college. Only 27%. Remaining, I'll tell you, they do not drop out. 600 universities and 25,000 colleges to be accredited. NAC is meant to accredit the colleges to find out where exactly they stand in terms of actually of performance. So 25,000 colleges, no, nearly 50, more than 50% of the colleges actually are not accredited at all. They don't know what is their status. 600 units, nearly 50% of the universities actually are not accredited by the NAC. Higher education enrollment is abysmally low. Say, for example, I'll give you the data. In the Western countries, higher education enrollment actually will be 80%, 85%, 90%. We have not even reached 30%. Means 70% of the people actually they drop out before they could even actually complete 10th standard. Almost 2/3 of our universities and 90% of our colleges are rated as below average on quality parameters. If you take quality parameter, I'll tell you more than actually 90% of colleges do not actually qualify to be good colleges. This is a very, very pathetic situation. And look at the picture here. 2F and 12B are the privileges given to by UGC. 2F actually is if you submit after actually starting a college, getting affiliation actually from the college, university. If you submit actually required documents, university will recognize you as an institution. University will recognize. That is 2F. And 12B is once actually your college is recognized, you are eligible to receive special grants actually from the UGC, provided you fulfill certain of the conditions. 2F is a must first. In order to get into 12B, you must actually be a college worth actually considering as a college. So therefore, the central government through UGC will provide actually some funding for your activities. And there are only 7,000, 28% only have qualified for 2F, and about 23% only have qualified actually for 12B. Put together, it is not more than 12,000 or 13,000 colleges out of 53,000 colleges. UGC has not been able to recognize them, and nor actually UGC is capable of actually giving any financial aid to them. Coming to gross enrollment ratio, it was 2017-18, it was 27.4% in almost actually 9 years ago. It has marginally increased. It might have reached actually 30 now, by 30 now. Look at actually the gross enrollment ratio. Tertiary education, I'm not actually talking about primary education. The people who get into the colleges. US actually 88% of the students who get into the school, they get into the colleges. 88% of 12% drop out. Whereas Germany has got actually 70%. That is the second highest. France about 65%. UK about 60%. Brazil about 51%. China about 49%. Indonesia is about 36%. India about 27%. And it is considerably, in fact, actually improved in the last actually few years. Two nations below India in GR actually are wonderful, our neighbor, Pakistan. and South Africa. These are the two countries are below us. The rest of the countries are above us, actually, in gross enrollment ratio, where most of the students who go to school will also go to college. Once you get into college and get a degree or diploma, your employment actually capability will enhance, and the country can actually have a wonderful human resource pool. Look at here. About actually 1.5 crore actually lakh students are in university and colleges. 1.5 crore students are either in the universities or in the colleges. And out of that 1.5 crore or 136, nearly 1.5 crore, only 12% of them are in the university departments. And 87% actually are in affiliate colleges. You must understand, I'll tell you, the entire actually tertiary education is being controlled and managed by affiliated colleges, where most of them actually are private colleges, where government cannot simply open any more colleges, nor they can sustain the existing colleges. Without private participation in India, neither primary education, nor secondary education, nor the higher education is ever possible in the absence of private actually operators. And without actually private education institutions, education in India actually is a distant dream for many of the people. And women enrollment actually was only 10% during the independence, 40s and 50s, etc. Now it is 41%. That is but I would say it is more than 65 to 70% now. I'll tell you, in my own college, I'll tell you, the number of girls are nearly 70%. The boys are only 30%. So the girl enrollment actually is simply just increasing like that. And the government of India wanted to actually establish 14 world-class universities and some 370 new degree colleges in each and every district. The government actually had a wonderful actually idea. But these world-class universities in the course of time have become third-class universities in India. The most unfortunate thing. Because look at actually the world actually picture of higher education. Top universities, most of them actually are in US, Europe, Singapore, etc., Japan, China, etc. Hardly one or two actually, which are actually at the end of the line, you find actually from Indian higher education system. And nearly 400 universities, about 10,000 colleges have been accredited by NAC, which I already told you. And every year, can you imagine, I tell you, every year not less than 80 lakh students leave schools and actually they want to get into the colleges. 80 lakh students. They want actually get into colleges to do some degree. 52,000 colleges are grossly insufficient. 52,000 colleges cannot simply cater to the 80 lakh actually students who are aspiring to become actually a graduate. And there are only 53 colleges to meet this actually demand. Fee, I'll tell you, is abysmally low. I'm not talking about the private colleges. Even in government colleges, I'll tell you, fees is so low where the government contribution cannot cross 3% of their budgetary allocation, and they cannot raise the money from the student enrollment. Therefore, most of the colleges actually suffer from the deficiency of funds, as a consequence of which they will not be able to provide actually any kind of facilities. And average monthly tuition fee in some of the government colleges will be equivalent to a coffee in a cafe coffee day, actually, a coffee shop. And fee was frozen for many years. And even today, I'll tell you, in government colleges, etc., less than 10% of the total cost of the degree actually will be collected as fees. The remaining 90% has to be borne by the government, which is an impossibility because we cannot actually afford to have more than 3% actually of budgetary allocation for higher education or education. In fact, actually, any sound economy or a country should actually have 6% minimum of their budgetary allocation. But in India, no, we cannot actually afford to be more than 3%. Whereas in US, it is 60%. The fee actually covers 60% of the total cost. Say, for example, in order to get an ordinary degree from a university, it costs 10 lakhs, means 6 lakhs will be collected from the students and 4 lakhs will be given by. Whereas in India, if it is 10 lakhs means 9,95,000 rupees will be collected, given by the government, and only 6,000 rupees will be given by the students. In China, a communist country, I'll tell you, collects 27%, whereas we in India, democracy, capitalist actually country, we are not in a position to collect more than 5 to 6% because the government is scared of backlash. And autonomous colleges already spoken. Karnataka has quite a number, but Tamil Nadu has the highest number of autonomy. The purpose of autonomy actually was to give them actually freedom so that actually they can devise their own courses, have their own exams, and turn out actually without being a burden to the university, some good actually finished products so that readily they can get into employment. No, it is failed miserably. Alumni donations, I'll tell you, most of the Western universities actually receive huge money from the alumni. Huge money. Bill Gates and many of those actually, Warren Buffett, they provide billions and billions of dollars actually to their alma mater, to their universities and colleges. In India, I'll tell you, the former students actually do not have any habit of actually contributing. They would rather go to Tirupati and contribute actually crores of rupees, but not to their universities. This is the most unfortunate. Look, the admission testing level actually 11%, it is 30%, etc., which I already spoken, which I do not want to inform. US has a system, a wonderful system. It says needs blind admission system. Needs blind admission system is, say for example, Yale University actually has some 50 seats on management, you say. These 50 seats of management actually open to any intelligent student, competent student across the globe. So students actually from different countries actually apply. The topmost, the cream actually will be selected. And the fees will be in lakhs, 15 lakhs, 40 lakhs, etc., etc. Say for example, some of the top actually selected students, they say, we cannot afford to pay the fees, we don't want to come. You know what the university says in your system? Please come, we'll give you loan. Because they want actually such intelligent students. And many of them actually receive the loan, and immediately after the degree, they can get employment and they can repay. That's simple. But many of them would say, we cannot even afford a loan. Even if we give loan, we cannot. We can't even travel. And if sometimes I'll tell you, the US government actually will give them absolutely free everything, including scholarship they give. They fly them to their universities, put them in their universities, give everything. But there is a catch here, you must understand. Those who actually go to US universities, once they complete the degree, they never think of actually coming back to any other country. I'll tell you, they have such wonderful opportunities, they get stuck there only. Once highly talented actually people stay back in that country's economy will obviously good, will be great. Because they will have spent actually few million actually dollars, they earn a few billion dollars actually using that person actually in some industry. This is exactly, I'll tell you, a kind of an idea only Americans can think of, right? And they have endowment corpus, a huge money that is actually collected by the students. 20 years ago, it was 34 billion in Harvard. Yale, it was 22 billion. It is, I'll tell you, the budget of a particular country. And Stanford actually had 17 billion. This was a huge money that collected from the institutions, I'll tell you, the universities, without any fee, etc., for a few years. That's the money they have actually collected as corpus endowment. And there are many reasons here. And one thing you must actually understand, 56 billion. 10 years ago, US government actually was giving 56 billion US dollars as loan to the students. They give loan, they get into colleges, other universities, then subsequently get into employment, they repay the loan. Loans and scholarships are a must, I'll tell you. In India, if someone wants to study, forget the times where actually parents used to pay the whole fee, take care of students. It is not actually possible. In some of the private institutions, I'll tell you, annual fee will be 4 lakh, 5 lakh rupees, etc. If you want a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year degree, it will run into 30, 40 lakhs, I'll tell you. Not many parents can afford, I'll tell you, he has to take the loan and repay it. That is the situation. And look at the tuition fees. This is older figure. About 10 years ago, this was the fees. Austria actually had the maximum fees of 746 for an ordinary liberal arts program. And minimum was also 746. Look at the picture that I have given there. Canada was 5,000 and China 2,590. India is the least there. $85 minimum, maximum. $20 actually was minimum fee that was done. Look at actually South Africa and United States, 6,000. I am talking about actually those days. If this is why I'm telling you is the government cannot actually afford to, in fact, actually totally take care of tertiary education. The private partners actually, operators must actually contribute, and the students also must contribute, because once they get the degree, I'll tell you, they'll be competent to earn till the end of their lives. Therefore, they can actually take a loan, do a degree, get a job, pay the loan, and they can actually make out their life. That is what exactly it is. Look, these are the universities, some of the universities in the country. Japan, with a population of 12 or 13 crore, I'll tell you, 684 universities they had once upon a time. USA, with nearly 30 crore population, more than 2,500 universities. UK, as well as Karnataka, had about actually 350 institutions, universities. 350 universities. Germany, as well as Tamil Nadu, had 330. India, with 125 crore people, I'll tell you, 146 crore. We have 1,300 universities, I'll tell you, grossly inadequate to meet the demand. This is the situation. Now the question actually comes into picture. What is the question? If this is the pathetic condition, what can be done? What can be done? What actually we can do? So these are the questions we will have to ask ourselves. I'm not asking you. Every one of us actually must ask ourselves what we can do for actually to this. So these are the questions. Please don't feel bad when these questions are asked. You do not have to answer to anybody. You will have to answer to your own self, right? How many of us teach from the original text, not just the textbooks but the source books? Even today, how many of us really go to the original text, take out lessons and teach? How many of us teach from the notes that we prepared long back by your teachers? How many of us even seen a journal recently? How many of us are aware that current advances in a subject, latest actually advances in our subject, where exactly the world is heading? How many of us debate about the events currently taking place? And how many of us actually even know where our past students are? Not only that, what they are doing and what is there actually. See, teaching is one profession, I'll tell you, one should come here actually out of love. If you really love teaching, then only should come. If at all, if someone comes here actually because of salary, because of various other actually benefits, I'll tell you, you are doing a disservice actually to this profession. That is why one of the High Court judges actually once said, the salary of a teacher and a judge should be less, very less. Only those who love will come for that. If you increase the salary like 3 lakh, 4 lakh rupees, all those people working in corporate, they'll jump here because actually life is very easier. Not much work, good salary. They don't come here for teaching. They come here actually for the comforts. Here, someone actually who really love teaching must come here and not for anything else. That's exactly the point. And so these are the questions I'll tell you. If you can actually answer these questions, perhaps you will be able to. Madam, you see, there is someone in the thing sleeping and having a time. At least will someone request her to put off the camera? It is disturbing others. Musfira, someone Musfira, right? Madam, please, Musfira, you can actually hear me. Either sit down or put off the camera. Please put off the camera, no problem. Oh my goodness. No. I am talking about actually teachers in India. I never knew that actually I can have some real examples here in the group. Okay. Maybe perhaps he doesn't know how to put off the camera. Be that as it may. I'm sorry. Now we'll take up actually modern universities here, right? So modern university, I'm not talking about actually Nalanda, Takshila. I'm not actually going back. Modern university, the last actually 200 years, 300 years. So what is a university? There's a wonderful definition. University is a school of universal learning. Means it's a school where you learn actually something which is universal in its nature. Universal in its nature. Not something actually local in its nature. Something universal. So for example, take chemistry. Chemistry is all the same, I'll tell you, go to any 193 countries, any continent, it is all the same. Because it is universal. But some things I'll tell you only important actually to a particular area, not important to others. We don't study such things actually in universities. Universal. Contribution by 1,000 schools. A university is one thing I'll tell you. Every branch of human knowledge actually is pursued in that particular. A traditional Western university, I'll tell you, will have science, technology, medicine, engineering, whatnot. Every branch of knowledge actually will be one in one actually campus called university. Perhaps India is the only country where for each branch we have created a university by itself. Technical university, medical university, law university, and teacher university, Ayurveda university. I'll tell you, we have splintered, I'll tell you, where synthesis actually of wisdom is not much. Say, for example, all branches are within one campus. There will be some kind of an interaction, and one branch knows actually the intricacies of the other branch, and you will be able to, in fact, actually expose yourself to all branches of knowledge. This is the real concept of university. Unfortunately, in India, this is not being followed. And they also say university is a place where actually intellect actually can range and speculate freely. Your intellect, I'll tell you, has no boundaries, no limitation. You can think as you wish, you can think as you want to think and create new ideas. Unlike here, I'll tell you, you have been blindfolded. You have been blindfolded. You must think in a particular direction and do something actually in a particular direction. That is not actually intellectual freedom, I'll tell you. You must be allowed absolutely free. That is how actually new inventions possible. Right? One of my students actually who did his engineering, then law, then he went to US, then did his MBA. Then he is working actually for Ford Motor Company. And he had come to India. I asked him, I'll tell you, you have a very strange kind of actually educational background. You are an engineer, you are a lawyer, you are a management actual student. Tell me, what do you do in Ford? You know what he said? He said, actually, I create design for the Ford Motor Company, means car designs. How do you create? I'll tell you, nobody comes and actually discuss me. I'll create actually a few designs and submit to my manager. Nobody comes and asks me. And when there is no disturbance, I'll tell you, I have new ideas actually of new designs, I submitted. I don't know how many of my actually ideas have been accepted, but my ideas actually are appreciated. He has been given total freedom. When, say, for example, holding a gun on your head, if I ask you to write a poetry, will you ever write a poetry? Poetry will not come, something else will come. On the other hand, if I ask you to simply say, please go anywhere you like and bring a poetry after actually 10 days, you'll certainly come out actually with a wonderful actually piece of poetry after 10 days or 15 days. Education should be like that. But that kind of a freedom can we afford actually to give actually to our teachers and students? We are scared. We are scared. We cannot. Right? So it is a seat of wisdom and light of world. You know, in US, when the president actually gets selected, he'll choose his cabinet, not actually from the members who have been actually contested. He simply selects some of the top people actually from the field. Say, for example, foreign affairs means he'll go to international actually studies in a particular famous university, picks a professor, brings, and he will become a foreign minister, foreign secretary. And he goes to actually economic school. Some of the best actually economists he'll make a finance secretary. Unlike in India, totally different. You will have to, in fact, distribute the portfolios to the elected members. Sometimes I'll tell you, our higher education minister could be an SLC failure. Because you will have to provide actually the portfolio to one who has been elected. This is the unfortunate thing. So, Oxford and Cambridge universities were established in 19th century. They are not 1,000 years old, unlike our Nalanda Takshila. University of London was established in 1836, King's College in 1831, affiliating system actually was created there. When University of London was started in London, there are plenty of other actually institutions they wanted to create, but they did not actually have the finances. Therefore, they started affiliating system. University is one. Other small colleges actually will be affiliated to the university. They will be operating from distant places. We borrowed it. We borrowed it and we kept it. We embraced it. We are not ready to give up. I'll tell you, there are only 3 or 4 countries in the world they have still affiliating system. There are only 3 or 4 countries. Who are the ones who actually have this affiliating? India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal. These are the only countries I'll tell you still have affiliation system. No other country in the world actually has the affiliation system. And modern universities actually came because Woods, Woods was the person, was president of board of council. He thought we'll have to in fact have a better education system in India because it's a huge colony with 30 crore population at that point of time. It's almost like a continent. And if we don't actually educate them properly, they are going to be a big problem. Economically, they become burden. They must do it. So they introduced the British actually kind of a system here. And they wanted to encourage local vernaculars and classical language. 3 universities, Bombay University, Madras, and Calcutta universities were actually established. See, someone who is having a discussion better actually put off your camera. Put on the camera and keep actually having a conversation. It is, I'll tell you, you are unnecessarily disappointing the teacher who is. I don't mind actually someone puts off the camera. No problem. But put on the camera and keep talking. Imagine you are also a teacher. And the person who's talking and doing that is also a teacher, unfortunately. They must understand, no? Right? Be that as it may, I can't actually teach a teacher. I would rather teach a student. We can't teach a teacher. Be that as it may. And we wanted to prevent actually encourage the vernacular language. I'll tell you, this is the only country on the face of the planet actually where 23 languages have been actually accepted under the constitution as official languages. No other country in the world. And we have at least actually 4,000 to 5,000 colleges, languages, which are actually in existence in this country. No other country has as many languages as we have here. So each language actually is a live language. It is not a dead language. It carries, I'll tell you, the culture of that particular actually area. If a language dies, I'll tell you, the entire culture dies. Therefore, it is the responsibility to keep a language alive. Keeping this thing actually in mind, they established actually Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras universities in 1857. And University of Allahabad actually was established in 1887. And Lord Ripon actually reviewed and increased affiliated colleges in India. And because universities actually were limited in number and innumerable number of actually of colleges. And at that particular point of time, the British gave up actually their control over education. They made it as provincial subject. Means regarding education, Indian actually, the government itself actually can take a decision. The British Parliament need not actually take any decision. They declared it. And for the first time, I'll tell you, a typical Indian original university was established in 1915 by Madan Mohan Malviya. The Academic Staff College, earlier it is called, where this program is being conducted now, is Madan Mohan Malviya Teachers Actually Training Institute. It is now called MMTTC. So this man actually was a very, very fascinating personality. He was a high school teacher. He wanted to start a university because British people actually started their own thing. He wanted to start his own college, university. He requested actually Maharaja of Benares, who gave 1,000 acres of land. Okay, I'll give you 1,000 acres of land, you start your own college. But he did not have money. He traveled across the country and met actually all those actually people, rich, poor, and etc. Literally begged and borrowed money to start this college. He went to Hyderabad to meet Nizam. Because Nizam actually was at that time was the richest man actually in the earth. Richest man on the earth, literally in his cellar, had the currency notes of all countries. And he was the stingiest person at that particular point of time. He was the stingiest person. He used to wear dirty, torn out clothes, but richest man. In one thing, he was very, very generous. He had 500 wives. In that regard, he was very generous, right? He approaches actually the Nizam of Hyderabad. Hyderabad Nizam actually humiliates this person. You know what he does? He takes out actually his footwear and drops that footwear into his bag. This is my contribution. Take, you start your university, he says. So Madan Mohan Malaviya says, thank you very much, sir. Your contribution is immense. I'm really appreciate your contribution. He says, comes to Charminar in that public circle. He wants to auction. He says, I want to start an Indian university. I have been approaching everybody. Your Nizam actually was very generous. He has given me his footwear. Since I can't use this footwear actually for building the university, I want to auction it. If anybody wants, come and buy it. Nizam heard it. Then he felt terribly upset. He requested him to come back. He took the footwear back and gave some money and sent it. That is how actually our Banaras Hindu University was established in 1915. And 1960, very next year, Mysore University and Baroda universities, because they were related to Mysore Maharaja and Baroda Maharaja, they were related to each other. They were sending their children to UK for studies, but Mysore Maharaja, one of the pioneering actual personalities of modern Karnataka, he did so much actually for Karnataka. If Karnataka is something today, I'll tell you it's because of Maharaja of Mysore. He wanted to start a university for his subjects, not for his children. Then he started actually in 1916, the University of Mysore. He wanted to educate girls. He approached actually many of the families, requesting them to send their daughters to the college. But many of the conservative parents were not willing to send. He said, I will start a college for women, where everybody will be women actually. Their principal, teachers, attendants, everyone will be there. That is how Maharani's college started. That is how Maharani's college started, and that is how actually the conservative family actually daughters started coming to the college. Bangalore Maharani's college, Mysore Maharani's college are all, I'll tell you, grandchildren actually of our Maharaja. And 1926, Andhra University started. If I tell you the people who actually headed as vice chancellor, you will be shocked. Ashutosh Mukherjee was a brilliant actually academician and a politician. Lakshmana Maswamy Madaliyar was a person of international actually status. C.R. Reddy, Radhakrishna, I need not tell you. He was one of the finest actually philosophers world has ever seen. These were the people, I'll tell you, they were the professors actually of this university. Subsequently, they become vice chancellor. You believe it or not? Any central government minister were to be asked whether they would accept actually the post of vice chancellor, they would resign actually central minister post and come and actually become vice chancellors. Can you imagine it now? And many of the professors, when they were asked to become vice chancellors, they simply said, I'll tell you, it's below our dignity. I am a professor, I don't want to become a clerk. That was actually the status of a professor. But these days, you're all teachers, professors, you know where exactly we stand. And subsequently comes, I'll tell you, the establishment of UGC. UGC, University Grants Commission, now actually it has been changed now. Anyway, it is not going to be in existence shortly. We are going to say goodbye to this one. The new system actually will come into picture. Anyway, till then, UK had one University Grants Commission, where government's actually funding actually to the higher education institutions was through this particular institution called UGC. So similarly, in India also they wanted to start this one. In 1952, government decided in all cases of allocation of funds to all the states and the universities and the colleges, it has to be done through an institution called UGC. So therefore, they wanted to bring this body called UGC. And the act was passed in 1956 with 28 sections, and established actually 4 centers, right? 6 regional centers. One in Pune, another in Hyderabad, Kolkata, Bhopal, Guwahati, and Bangalore. All of them now actually have disappeared. Now actually we have a higher education council, as you all know, but it is a historical action. What was actually UGC's responsibility? It was coordinating university education. Means university education in India should be similar, if not identical, must move actually in a particular direction. Therefore, there has to be a coordinating body. That body was UGC. And determining, maintaining standard of teaching. What should be the minimum standard of teaching in university level? What is the minimum standard of examination? What should be the minimum standard of research? All these things are to be decided by the UGC. Framing regulations of minimum standards and monitoring developments in the field of collegiate and university education, serving as a vital link between union and state, and advising central and state governments on measures necessary for improvement of university education. This is the main mandate of. Coming to Karnataka State Universities, I'll just give a background. The rest of the structure actually is almost similar in other universities as well. Mysore University, Karnataka University education, historical background, if you see, you will be shocked. See, there were 3 universities in 1976, only 3 universities in 1976. Exactly, I'll tell you, some 50, 60 years ago, there were only 3 universities. Now in Karnataka, there are more than nearly 200 universities, including private universities. Mysore University was established under 1916 Act, and recognized under 1933 Act, and also actually accepted under 1956. 1 university under 3 enactments. Karnataka University was established in 1949 by a Bombay Act, not Karnataka Act, Bombay Act. And Bangalore University was established recently, 1964, about actually 60 years ago. And uniform law actually was brought in 76 because nearly 5 laws actually are controlling 3 universities. 5 enactments controlling 3 universities. In 1976, 1 act actually was made where all the 3 universities actually were brought under that particular actually act. And presently, there are plenty of actually universities. There are nearly 30 enactments, 24 actually state enactments, and private universities, there are more than actually 30 to 35 enactments actually which govern Karnataka. And in 2000, they wanted, in fact, review 1976 actually act because it was almost actually 25 years up. They want to bring about actually certain changes. So a committee was constituted called Professor N.K. Raj as the chairman. It tried to find out what are the lacunae that are there in the universities, problems they are facing. These are the problems. Way back in 1976, he found K.N. Raj. Even today, we find these actual problems which are bothering our universities. You know what he observed? Appointment of vice chancellor on community and caste basis. Even today, it is done that. Way back in 1976, I'll tell you, a vice chancellor was appointed because of a particular community or a caste. VCs use their officers filling their men. Even at that particular point of time, vice chancellors filled their own men in the university. Even now, it is being done the same thing. Nominations for the Senate, Syndicate, Academic Council on extraneous consideration. Please simply look into your own actually syndicate members, academic council members, and other members. You can understand what wonderful kind of people actually occupy those places. You can, I don't want to comment on that. Bangalore University was proposed to be a central university, but unfortunately it became a municipal university. They wanted to create actually a national university called Bangalore. When it was created and started running it, it became a municipal university, a local university. Black practices, allegations of corruptions and interference by the government and the vice chancellors and the university administration indulged in corruption, nepotism, favoritism, bias, etc. Due to commissions and omissions, corruptions, interference by the government, and innumerable cases actually were filed against the university. Even today, I'll tell you, 100. I have seen actually many of the vice chancellors were charged with severe criminal charges. Some of them actually have been even arrested. I'm sure shortly many of them will be going to jail also. And these are the people, I'll tell you, who are academicians, stand for certain other values, and these are the people who create actually future generation of this country. And that committee report actually was not fully accepted. One more committee was established. That was in 1994, Navneet Rao committee. He also suggested some changes. And with that, they introduced actually in 2001 the new bill. There was, because at that time, the government was strong, very strong because of absolute majority. The present, the deputy chief minister was the education minister at that time. Dr. Parameshwara was the education at that minister at that time. He was the one who was responsible actually for piloting that bill, and he did. There was severe actual resistance actually by them, because not even an iota of democratic actual element was there in the act. Every person in every body actually of the university was nominated by the government nominees. No elections were there at all. No democratic actually element was present. Bill was passed actually with all difficulty and received governor's nod actually on 12th of 9/2001, and the same night it was gazetted. I'll tell you, in a hurry burry, it was gazetted. September 12th, I received the same night. The governor assented. Next day morning, it became law, because they are scared there could be some kind of a withdrawal or something like that. There are 16 chapters, 86 sections. No, I'll just go through that and explain actually what are actually the plus points. And there are some amendments also have been done. Most of the university enactments, I'll tell you, throughout the country are similar to this framework. There could be some small changes here and there. So therefore, don't think that I am only talking about actually Karnataka state universities. These are the university formats, I tell you, equally applicable to all other universities in the entire country. What does it actually say? I'll just talk about this university. It can be applicable to your universities also outside Karnataka. So each university has a territory. In India, university has been given a definite territory. Mysore University means it must work only within Mysore. So Bangalore University means Bangalore University, it has, I think there are 4 universities, because Bangalore is a huge country, city. One university is not sufficient. Bangalore North, South, Center, and something like that. Some 3 or 4 universities are. They must operate within the geographical area only. They cannot go beyond that, right? And 31 districts actually are covered. Now each district has a university. Each district. The previous government actually said each university. So they started the universities without any infrastructure. I'll tell you. So therefore, 31 districts, 31 universities. There must be. And some of the universities, earlier I'll tell you, Mysore University had nearly 300 colleges. Presently, it has got some 50 to 60 colleges. Chamarajanagar University has got only 18 colleges, sir. It is a university. Because, it's good, I'll tell you, to have more universities, sir. The question is, once you start a university, you must also provide adequate funds for that, so that it can sustain itself. What are the powers of the universities? What universities must do? First, they must teach instructions. Secondly, they must actually hold examination. That's the responsibility. Thirdly, research. These are the 3 main functions of any university: to teach, hold exams, and do research. Besides this, they can also confer honorary degrees. Honorary degrees means those who have not actually done the conventional actually kind of degrees, going to the college for 3 years and actually passing the exam. No. Someone actually has done something extraordinary in a particular field. He could be given an honorary degree. Honoris causa, what we call actually doctorate. And administer colleges and schools. It is the responsibility of the universities to administer the colleges and administer the hostels. Collect fee, whatever 5% or 6% of the total cost, you will have to collect fee. Accept endowments. Hardly there are any endowments, because Indian actually mentality is such that actually they do not want to contribute actually much to their actually universities. They would rather actually contribute for various other things, but not to their actual universities. Somehow it is not in our blood. I told you, we'll go to temples and actually contribute immensely, but not to our universities. And maintain discipline. It is an extremely difficult actually thing. These days, I'll tell you, maintaining discipline in university is not a big thing. I'm sure I'll tell you, most of you must have actually seen it. When I was a student in 60s, 70s, and 80s, I'll tell you, every year there used to be a strike at least for 1 month. If there is no strike, I'll tell you that the academic year actually was a very idiotic, actually dull year. So on some bloody nonsensical reason, I'll tell you, they used to in fact actually hold a strike, 1 full month strike. Have you ever seen, I'll tell you, these days students going on strike? Have you ever seen?
No, no, sir, no. They are so dumb that they don't understand what is ideology. Forget about going on a strike.
It's not that. That's one thing. Secondly, they have their mobiles. They have their freedom. They're totally immersed actually in their own actually world of social, so, media and mobile and all that. I'll tell you, they are not actually worried about anything at all. I'll tell you, the modern youth have been almost, I'll tell you, castigated. They have been left actually with life, without life. This is a very, very bad kind of a thing. I'll tell you, young generation, if they do not revolt against injustice, that country actually is doomed to fail. Doomed to fail. And old people like us can't do it because we are already almost actually finished. We are waiting actually for our final day to come. But these youngsters who have a life actually ahead of them, and our education system, not education system, I'll tell you, technology, our social mores, I'll tell you, have converted all these people to, I'll tell you, they're good for absolutely nothing, because I am a teacher for the past actually 45 years. And almost actually in the 45 years, every 11 months I have taught actually either the students or the government employees or somebody. I mean, almost actually literally every day taught 1 or 2 classes. With my little experience, I would say this is the worst possible actually kind of a generation we are seeing, where creativity actually is almost finished. Anyway, I am not actually very pessimistic, but that is what actually I could say. Anyway, let's stop there. We'll go further. University is open to all classes of people. There is no discrimination at all. Anybody can actually provide actually complete, has the qualification, can go it. And see, this is where exactly the present act actually was made absolutely lifeless. You know, when section 10 actually was added, where the universities had entire actually power to in fact have their own finances and take decisions and have policies. But when section 10 actually was introduced in 2000 act, it said whatever the university does, the government approval is a must. If the government doesn't approve, university cannot do anything. That is the final actually fatal blow on the independence actually of the university. Universities cannot do without actually the government actually not. And the government simply says, we pay you actually 60% of the finances. You must listen to us. And you must do what we say. So that's the end of the story. Okay, there's nothing much to say about it. Going further, look, these are the officers. Go to any university, anywhere. There will be chancellor. Usually, actually, the state universities, the chancellor will be the governor. Right? And pro-chancellor, between vice-chancellor and pro-chancellor, there will be pro-chancellor. And in government universities, I'll tell you, it is the education minister, higher education minister. He is the pro-chancellor. Vice-chancellor actually is the chief executive of the college. Executive. He is the one actually who controls the university, does everything. And registrar actually is the administrative head. Usually, vice-chancellors will be academicians. They will not be knowing anything about administration, not much. Therefore, in order to maintain the administration, the government thought these people actually must not be academicians, rather they should be administrators. You know what actually government of Karnataka did? The registrar post actually must be held by a senior IAS officer itself, or union services. They must hold it. I'll come to that point later. Then registrar evaluation. Once again, the administrator will tell you in charge of the examination. Every university status can be assessed through this registrar evaluation department. The examination, evaluation, and result. These factors determine the state of the university, status of the university. And deans, for each faculty, they should be held called dean. And there has to be a library and librarian. There has to be a finance officer. Usually the finance officer actually will be government servant. And there has to be a director of PME, planning, monitoring and examination actually, or evaluation body, PME board, and the director of student welfare. When thousands of students actually are there in university, there must be an officer entirely in charge actually of the student welfare. Their health, their overall development, etc., must be looked after. Director, College Development Council. This man is the link between the university and the private colleges. All colleges is the link, where through this actually the student, director of College Development Council, the university controls all the colleges affiliated and not non-affiliated. Director of Physical Education. Physical education is part of education, not just actually intellectual actually development, but also physical development. And any other officers, such other officers, the university needs can actually also be appointed. This is what actually says. Coming to Chancellor, I'll tell you, Governor is the Chancellor. But his role actually as a Chancellor is different from his role as the Governor actually in the administration of the state. He is a central government actually agent or a link to the local government, right? In order to hold actually this federal system, a governor of the central government actually is appointed in the state so that the state cannot actually slip away from the union. To hold it back, his office is created. And Pro-Chancellor actually was not there earlier. In 2000 Act came. He is the Minister of Education. Minister of Higher Education actually is the Pro-Chancellor. If you look into his power, you will be shocked. You know what is his power? The minister in charge of higher education, by virtue of his office, he shall preside over the convocation in the absence of Chancellor. If the Chancellor cannot actually come for convocation, then our Pro-Chancellor must preside over that. This is main power, but in reality, he has the absolute power. I'll tell you how it is later. The Vice Chancellor, the man actually who is in charge of the university, who is the chief executive of the university, his selection actually is always actually will be muddied actually with various actually controversies. So there will be 4 members nominated by UGC, state government, university, and the Chancellor. They are actually the search committee, they call it. They receive application actually from the eligible candidates, and they look into their qualifications, experience, etc., etc. Out of the applications received, 3 names he recommends to the Chancellor. Three names, and while doing so, he must actually look into the merit, equality, social justice. All these factors should be looked into, and the list actually of 3 people should be submitted. And the panel, once it submits, the present law says Chancellor in consultation with the government should appoint the teacher. Means earlier it used to be submitted to the Chancellor. Chancellor would select one name and announce it actually as the Vice Chancellor. 2010 enactment said no, Chancellor cannot do it. Chancellor actually in consultation with the government, he must consult the government. So therefore the government and the Chancellor together, they must arrive at a conclusion, select one person actually as the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor. And the appointment not open to challenge unless deliberate violations. You can't bring a stay for the appointment unless and until there is a severe infraction of a procedure. You can't bring a stay actually for the appointment of the Vice Chancellor. It is not actually possible. Moving further, powers of UGC. He has got actually all power. He is the chief executive, I'll tell you. Principal executive, he is the master, I'll tell you. This man, in excess, is chairman of all the bodies, academic council, syndicate, finance committee, and various bodies. And one more thing, he can perform all those acts which are deemed necessary for the welfare of the university. Sometimes he can take a decision subsequently placed before the appropriate body for its approval. Say, for example, a decision has to be taken only with the approval of the academic council. The rule says. But his power, he can take the decision, implement it, subsequently keep it before the academic council for the approval. Retrospectively, it is also possible. Just like American president, in emergency, he can do it. He can impose actually any kind of a conditions. Registrar, I'll tell you, he is an administrative officer. In Karnataka, an officer of All India Service. Member Secretary of Academic Council, Syndicate. Custodian of records and convene meetings. This is it. But in Karnataka, very strange things happened. IAS officers, no IAS officer would ever wanted to come and actually get stuck actually in the university because there is no charm in it. But some people came. But they came, they forgot that it is the university is not a government. They started behaving like IAS officer in a government. As a consequence of which, one of the registrars actually was had to face actually a serious actually legal problem. A case was registered. He was about to be arrested. He ran away, and IAS Association took a decision. Henceforth, no IAS officer should ever accept actually university assignment. So therefore, IAS people actually dropped. Then came the IPS people. These IPS people actually came, thought that actually university is a police station. They started behaving like police officers, and immediately no vice chancellor wanted to keep an IPS officer as a registrar. They were driven out. And the only last thing that was left us actually was our IFS officer who were actually enjoying in the forest, came to universities. They thought university is also a forest. They started only fencing, preventing others from encroaching, forgot about actually totally about the academics. So universities got so much fed up, I'll tell you, they requested, please take all these people, wonderful people out of them. We'll have our own actually academician to manage it. Now, I'll tell you after amendment, all these places, I'll tell you, we have actually university academicians working. And not only that, going further, qualifications and powers and duties actually of the registrar evaluation. Registrar evaluation actually is a very important actually person. And he is the person in charge actually control of the evaluation, the examination. There is a finance officer who controls the finances, manages the finances. Deans who control each faculty. Librarian who controls actually library. Director planning actually talks about actually plans about actually future plans of the government, university. Director of College Development Council, who is a link between the private college and this one, and physical education. These were other officers. And the body is the syndicate, supposed to be the most actually powerful decision-making body is syndicate, like cabinet. Academic council actually is a body where academics actually of the university is discussed. Finance committee is a committee which discusses about actually finances. Board of Studies actually is a wonderful actually body, which is a body of actually specialists. Say for example, each subject will have a board. Say for example, history board of study you take. So only the top academicians of history department will be there. They decide as to in BA what history should be taught, in MA what history should be taught, and what should be actually for other programs, etc., because this is the specialist body. Subsequently, faculties. Faculty is actually, there are 5 faculties usually in all universities: science, arts, law, education, and technology. These are the 5 faculties. So these 5 faculties will have all these actually boards. Planning and monetary, I already told you. And going further, look, these are actually the rules and regulations. All the rules and regulations actually are not called rules and regulations. Some are called statutes. For certain things, it is called statutes. For certain of the laws are called ordinances. In ordinary sense, ordinance actually is a law that is made when the house actually is not in session. Its life is only 6 months, right? Unlike there, ordinance actually is also like a law, regulation and rules. They are intricacies, you don't have to worry about it. University funds, I'll tell you, majority of the fund actually is from the government and various actually other funding bodies. And every year there must be annual accounts and audit. Financial, that is what is actually called the budget of the university must be prepared, approved actually by the government. And the government will actually have absolute power to control actually the finances of the university. And annual report must be submitted. Now come here. The university also has the power to appoint teachers and librarians. And promotion schemes they can appoint. They can also appoint part-timers and temporary teachers also it can appoint. Temporary teachers are a must, I'll tell you, to run any program, because you can't run a program only with full-timers. For example, take actually our department like law. Not all subjects can be taught only by actually academicians. We need actually lawyers, we need auditors, we need actually company secretaries to teach certain subjects. They are part-timers only. And apartment of non-teaching and transfer of employees from one university to another university, there is a provision under section 58. They can transfer the employees. If the employees actually are required in some other university, you can transfer it. But I'll tell you, it is not that easy because nobody wants to leave the university. Affiliation system, which I have already mentioned, how it is to be done, and permanent affiliation, withdrawal affiliation is there. Permanent affiliation is given. You can even actually withdraw affiliations, and there are certain rules regarding actually autonomous colleges, etc., etc. And the universities also have the power to, in fact, grant honorary degrees. And once in 5 years, I'll tell you, there has to be a review committee to review the University Act so that new changes can be brought in. That is one thing. And there is one thing known as actually Karnataka State Inter-Universities Board. All 35 universities of Karnataka, government universities, each university is part of this inter-university board. The chairman of the board actually is the education minister. Whatever decision that is actually taken in the board must be implemented, I'll tell you. And this is where I'll tell you, our pro-chancellor, pro-chancellor, education minister actually has absolute power. Any decision taken in inter-university board is binding on all universities. Whatever actually a chancellor says doesn't operate, right? So therefore here, indirectly, the politicians will have this say. What are the duties of a teacher? Tell me, you are all teachers. What are the duties? To teach, to evaluate, to research, and help actually in administration, and encourage students to, in fact, actually academically oriented. These are the things. But our teachers actually have many grouses. What is that? Many of them do not want to value the papers unless and until they are paid actually good compensation for that. Usually, teachers, they raise this issue when the evaluation comes until they go on strike. They go on strike so that the demands can be met. That is why here a provision was added in 1977, section 74. You may not be knowing what is this provision. If a teacher fails to perform examination duty, you know what is actually the consequence? 3 years of imprisonment, 2,000 rupees fine. If you refuse to value, if you refuse to set a question paper, if you refuse to do actually examination duty or any other actually examination related duty, a case can be filed. It is a criminal act. You can be sent to jail for 3 years. Did you know this before you accepted this post? So look, understand, this is why actually in India, democracy is not a success. This act came into existence 26 years ago. And in the last 26 years, I will tell you, this undemocratic norm is there. Unfortunately or fortunately, nobody has actually gone to jail. A person was about to go. By chance, due to his luck, I will tell you, could avoid it. Otherwise, when a teacher actually says, I'm not actually going to do my duty for these reasons, I'll tell you, a thief, a pickpocket will be sent to jail only for 1 year or 2 years, but the teacher will be sent to jail for 3 years. So that is a bit. And any person who encourages a person to do it, he will also be punished. Not only that, prohibition of private tuition. And once upon a time, I'll tell you, some 10 years ago, 15 years ago, actually, tuition actually was at its peak. Most of the teachers, especially in certain subjects like physics, chemistry, mathematics, huge actually business used to take place in lakhs and lakhs of rupees. But these days, everything is taken over by corporates. They have their own actually corporate actually kind of a thing. And the colleges themselves actually have packages. They give additional coaching for an extra fee. Anyway, if someone actually takes a private tuition, what is the consequence? They have not mentioned anything. You are not supposed to take private tuition. If you take, what to do? Karnataka State Private Universities Act, Private Education Act will say what punishment could be given. Right? That's it. And reforms are required. There are plenty of actual reforms. And the thing is, the selection post actually method of vice chancellor must be totally overhauled, and academic bodies of the universities must only be filled by genuine academicians like you, not bogus academicians. Only those who have some kind of a vision of higher education should be in the bodies. So these are some of the selection. There are plenty which I do not want to, in fact, actually talk. This is where exactly I want to, in fact, actually stop, so that you can, ask any question. Yes. Anybody? Camera on ಮಾಡಿಯಪ್ಪ, at least. We are closing the session. Will you please actually put on your cameras?